That morning, the forest birds filled the sky with their songs. Their chirping echoed from one hillside to another, blending with the early breeze that carried the cool, refreshing scent of the mountains. Inside the small kitchen made of packed earth, Tieu Ca was tending the fire to boil a pot of water. The thin smoke drifted upward, weaving through the wooden beams and slipping out between the roof tiles, giving the humble kitchen a warm, homely glow. The red flames flickered against her cheeks, highlighting the gentle simplicity of a hard-working woman. Out on the porch, Little Un sat alone on a tiny bamboo chair. Her small legs swung back and forth while her bright eyes followed the birds gliding over the distant treetops. Every now and then, she peeked into the kitchen and softly called, "Mommy," just to make sure Tieu Ca was still there. When the water was nearly boiling, Tieu Ca carried a bucket to the garden. The morning sun was just warm enough, shining over the rows of fresh vegetables still jeweled with dew. The sound of water pouring from the bamboo bucket splashed rhythmically onto the soil, cool and soothing. Seeing her mother watering the garden, and immediately toddled out from the porch. Her tiny feet pressed into the soft earth, leaving behind little round footprints. She ran between the vegetable beds with her arms spread wide, as if she wanted to embrace the whole garden. "Slow down, sweetheart, you'll trip," Tieu Ca called out gently while watering. A little farther away, a mother hen scratched the ground with her chicks, while the ducks in the pond splashed noisily, quacking cheerfully. The peaceful scene brought a smile to Tieu Ca's lips. Life might be hard, but moments like this made everything worthwhile. When she finished watering, she rolled up her sleeves and returned to the kitchen to prepare breakfast. Today she made noodles for An, simple, but her daughter's favorite. The aroma of fried shallots and hot broth blended with the scent of the wood fire, filling the little house with warmth. Mother and daughter sat together under the porch, facing the sunlit garden. And held her tiny pair of chopsticks, eating while chattering endlessly. Tieu Ca listened, nodded, smiled, occasionally adding a piece of egg or a bit of vegetable into her daughter's bowl. Meanwhile, in another part of town, Hung was starting his day in a very different way. He stepped into a large clothing store, his eyes scanning coats, scarves, and thick wool socks. Not for himself, but for Tieu Ca. Winter was approaching, and the winds on the hill could be bitterly cold. Tieu Ca worked outdoors every day, and her clothes were thin and worn. Just thinking of that made Hung's heart tighten with worry. He selected a thick brown coat, simple and rustic, just like the style she often wore. Then he picked 2 high-neck sweaters, a pair of soft wool socks, and a warm scarf. His fingers brushed over the fabric, his heart filled with concern, and a tenderness he no longer tried to hide. "I'll take all of these," he told the clerk. The clerk wrapped each item neatly and smiled. "Buying for your wife? You're very thoughtful." Hung paused for a moment, then simply smiled without explaining. After paying, he stepped out of the store. The morning wind of the small town brushed against his face, cold and crisp. Yet somehow, warmth spread through his chest. On the way back, he could only think of one thing. "I wonder if Tieu Ca and the kids have had breakfast yet." That morning, after their warm breakfast under the porch, Tieu Ca cleaned up the bowls and chopsticks, then gathered her things to begin a new day of work. She took Little Un to the neighbor's house. The child was so gentle and well-behaved that the moment she arrived, she ran inside to play, turning back to wave at her mother. "Mommy, go to work. I'll be good here." Tieu Ca stroked her daughter's head lovingly, smiled, then headed toward the orange orchard behind the hill. The path leading to the orchard was covered in dry leaves left from the previous season. A soft breeze swept across, making the leaves flutter, while the gentle morning sunlight filtered through, warming the familiar dirt path she walked every day. The orchard was quieter than usual that morning. The lush green leaves rustled in the wind, and a few small birds took flight when they heard her footsteps. This year, the orange trees were heavy with fruit, so heavy that many branches bowed under the weight. Tieu Ca walked deeper inside, toward the trees that had started to ripen. She touched each fruit, feeling the softness of the peel, then picked the ripest one to taste. The moment she peeled it, a fresh citrus fragrance spread into the air. She bit into a segment, the sweet, juicy flavor burst across her tongue, bringing a contented smile to her lips. So sweet, these should sell well, she thought. Then she began harvesting. A gentle tug here, a snip there, each stem separated cleanly from the branch. She placed each fruit carefully into her bamboo basket. The soft thump of oranges touching one another created a steady rhythm. A familiar melody of her mornings on the hill. Some fruits were too high to reach, so she held onto the trunk, climbing onto a thicker branch. Sweat dampened her back, and her calloused hands grasped the rough bark as she stretched toward a cluster above. Just as she stepped to the side, her foot slipped. Ah! She fell onto a patch of soft grass, her back hitting the ground with a dull thud. Pain shot up her leg, and the startled birds burst from the treetops in a flurry of wings. Fortunately, the branch wasn't high, and the ground was still soft from last night's rain. She only ended up with a sore back and a bruised leg. She winced, sat up, brushed the dirt from her skirt, and took a long steadying breath. It's okay, it's okay. I have to keep going. I still need to buy milk and diapers for the kids. With that, she stood, checked the basket, and climbed up again, despite the throbbing pain. Her hands trembled slightly, but her determination didn't waver. She picked the last few oranges until the basket was filled to the brim. She tied the straps securely, then hoisted the heavy load onto her back. The weight dragged her shoulders down, but she still smiled faintly, as if she had long grown accustomed to every hardship. Then she began the descent down the hill. Each step was careful under the weight of the basket, but her feet remained steady over stones and roots. The wind tugged at her clothes, her shadow stretching long across the reddish dirt path. Wildflowers bloomed along the way. Purple myrtle, yellow daisies, and white mountain blossoms, painting the mountainside in soft colors. Walking through the scenery, Tieu Ca looked like a part of nature itself, quiet, simple, and pure. Eventually, she reached the market. The morning market was bustling as always, laughter, vendors calling out, motorbike engines, children crying. The everyday symphony of a new day. She made her way to her usual spot, a small empty patch beside a vegetable stall. There was no shade there, but it had been hers for months. She set down the basket, straightened her clothes, and began arranging the oranges. Their glossy green-gold color immediately caught people's attention. Within minutes, customers stopped by. These from your garden? Let me try a kilo. Are they sweet? Give me 2 kilos. Pick me a few to eat now. Tieu Ca bent down, her hands moving quickly. Weighing, selecting, wrapping, while her soft smile never faded. Even as her back ached and her shoulders throbbed. Before long, nearly all the oranges were gone. In just over an hour, she sold everything. The money she earned was enough for milk, diapers, and some good food for her 2 children at home. The market was still noisy and lively, yet for Tieu Ca, a morning like this was already a blessing. She slung the empty basket onto her back, brushed the dust from her sleeves, and began walking home. The midday breeze carried traces of citrus scent still clinging to her hands, making her steps feel a little lighter. At the neighbor's house, the afternoon passed in quiet peace. The elderly woman sat on an old wooden chair under the porch, cradling baby Long as he drank from his small milk bottle. His tiny hands clutched the bottle tightly, eyes half closed from fullness and drowsiness. The loyal yellow dog lay at her feet, occasionally getting up to patrol the yard. Its tail swayed gently, ears perking up at every little sound. It almost seemed as though it were helping her watch over baby Long, guarding the gate so no strangers would enter. The atmosphere was so calm that even the birds chirping in the neighbor's garden could be heard clearly. After a while, hurried footsteps sounded outside the gate. Tieu Ca was back from the market, an empty basket hanging behind her. Sweat dotted her forehead, but her smile remained bright. Good afternoon, Auntie, Tieu Ca greeted softly. She set the basket down, stepped closer, and knelt in front of the old woman and her child. The moment baby Long saw his mother, he stirred and broke into a tiny, squinty-eyed smile. Tieu Ca touched his cheek gently, relieved to see him well and cheerful. Did he trouble you at all, Auntie? She asked gratefully. The old woman chuckled, patting Long's chubby leg. Oh no, he was an angel. Didn't cry at all. Just drank and slept. This little boy is so easy to care for. Tieu Ca breathed out in relief, her smile softening even more. She knew the old woman lived alone, yet still helped look after her children day after day. Her heart was full of gratitude. They sat together under the porch, talking as the breeze rustled through the trees behind the house, adding warmth to the already peaceful moment. They talked about the vegetables, the orange orchard, the avocado hill, and the shifting weather. The old woman warned her about the strong winds these days, and Tieu Ca shared how well the oranges sold and that she planned to buy more food for the children tonight. In the middle of their conversation, Tieu Ca opened her cloth bag and took out a new piece of clothing. A warm brown sweater, soft and thick, perfect for the chilly season approaching. Auntie, please try this on. It's a small gift, to thank you for helping us so much, Tieu Ca said, her voice shy but sincere. The old woman looked at the sweater, and her eyes glistened slightly. Oh dear, you didn't have to. I only helped with little things. But, thank you, child. Her voice trembled just a bit, but her smile was warm and genuine. Tieu Ca lifted baby Long from her arms so the old woman could stand and try on the sweater. Long buried his face into his mother's shoulder, tiny fingers gripping her collar. When the old woman put it on, she grinned brightly. So warm. Fits like it was made for me. The yellow dog circled her feet as if inspecting her new outfit, making both mother and child laugh softly. They chatted for a while longer until the afternoon sunlight began dipping behind the hill, painting the sky in shades of bright gold and orange. Tieu Ca glanced at the time and gasped softly. I have to pick up Littlin from preschool, or I'll be late. She slung her bag over her shoulder, held baby Long tightly, and bowed gratefully. Thank you so much, Auntie. I'll bring you some food later tonight. The woman waved her off. Go on, hurry. The slope is steep, walk carefully, you hear? Tieu Ca nodded, stepping out of the gate with baby Long in her arms. Her shadow stretched long under the fading sunlight. A small, slender figure carrying immense strength. Beginning yet another part of her day. The loving, selfless journey of motherhood. After weeks of caring for her garden, Tieu Ca's vegetable beds had finally grown lush. The mustard greens were vibrant, the kohlrabis plump and round, and the tomato vines had begun to sprout tiny yellow blossoms. A promise that fruiting season was near. That morning, a gentle breeze swept through the yard. The sun rose slowly, as if quietly admiring the small world she had built. Tieu Ca stepped outside with a broom, sweeping the dry leaves left from several misty nights. Each stroke was light yet steady, much like the way she handled life itself. Birds chirped cheerfully from the treetops, their songs echoing through the hills. It was the kind of peaceful morning that could soften anyone's heart. After sweeping, she carried baby Long to the porch. They sat on an old wooden bench, with the vast mountain sky stretching out before them. Baby Long rested in her arms, staring wide-eyed at the drifting white clouds above. The sound of a small stream trickling beside the house blended with the rustling leaves, creating a gentle morning melody. Tieu Ca fed long spoonfuls of warm porridge while letting her thoughts float along the mountain breeze, grateful for this rare moment of calm amid her busy days. Just then, familiar footsteps echoed at the gate. Hung appeared, holding a large bag of clothes. When he saw the two of them sitting peacefully under the porch, he paused for a moment. As though the scene quietly pulled him in. Feeding Long? He asked softly, his voice warm. Tieu Ca looked up, a gentle smile blooming on her lips. Yes, he just started eating a little. Hung stepped closer, set the bag down, then sat beside her. He carefully took baby Long into his arms, holding him with a firm, steady tenderness. Long looked at him with curious, round eyes and suddenly giggled, reaching out to touch his cheek as if they were longtime friends. Hung opened the bag and took out new clothes. Thick jackets, warm sweaters, long dresses, cozy pants. Every piece was chosen with quiet care, as if he were buying for his own family. You bought all this for me? Tieu Ca's cheeks flushed, she smiled shyly and lowered her gaze. Hung chuckled, lifting a light brown jacket for her. Try it on. See if it suits you. She stood up, slipped it over her shoulders, and turned around shyly. The morning sunlight cast a soft glow on her face, making her cheeks look even rosier. Do I look okay in this? She asked timidly, like a breeze brushing through the leaves. Hung looked at her for a long moment before replying in a low, sincere tone. You look beautiful in anything. A simple sentence, but it warmed her heart more than the morning sun. She quickly looked away, smiling as she folded the jacket neatly. Hung then pulled out tiny outfits for the children. These are for Tuan and Hung. They're growing fast, so I bought a few extra for them to wear later. Tieu Ca stared at the little clothes, brand new, neatly folded, chosen with love. Her eyes suddenly blurred, not from sadness, but from a quiet, overwhelming gratitude. No one else had ever cared for her this way. Thank you. I don't even know what to say, she whispered. Hung stood up, gathering the rest of the clothes. Let me put these inside. It's dusty out here. He brought them into the house, stacked everything neatly in the cabinet, then returned to the porch. His eyes wandered over the garden, and he smiled at the sight of its growth. The vegetables look good. Tomatoes will bear fruit soon. The kohlrabi is almost ready to harvest. Tieu Ca nodded proudly. Yes, I've cared for them since the first day. They grew this well because you helped me dig the soil. Hung looked at her, his eyes softening. I'll help with whatever I can. Don't feel shy with me. She lowered her gaze again, smiling quietly. Inside her heart, something warm was beginning to bloom. Just like the vegetable beds outside. Tiny seeds growing into strong, vibrant life. That morning, after tidying up and preparing a small meal for her two children, Tieu Ca gently put a light jacket on little Tuan and led her outside. The early air was still cool, dew shimmered on the leaves under the soft morning sun. The dirt path leading to the kindergarten was familiar now. And skipped along beside her mother, occasionally tugging on the hem of Tieu Ca's shirt. Passing by the small village market, Tieu Ca noticed and staring intently at a nearby grocery stall. She chuckled and led her daughter closer. Which candy do you want, sweetie? And pointed at the pink candies, her eyes bright with excitement. Tieu Ca bought a few pieces for her, then grabbed a warm packet of sticky rice, Aunt's favorite breakfast food. The two sat on a small wooden bench by the stall, eating together. The sticky rice was warm and soft, fragrant with mung beans. Aunt ate so eagerly that rice stuck all over her mouth, making Tieu Ca laugh as she wiped her daughter's face. After eating, she took Aunt to school. She knelt down, tied Aunt's shoelaces, brushed her hair, and whispered. Be good today, learn well, okay? I'll pick you up early. And hugged her tightly, then ran into class, waving non-stop until she disappeared behind the green classroom door. Meanwhile, over at the lumber mill, the atmosphere was completely different. That noon, sunlight streamed through the old metal roof, illuminating clouds of suspended sawdust. Most workers were on lunch break. Only Tuan sat at a wooden table in the corner, looking restless. He checked his watch repeatedly. Hung, the man assigned to transport the new batch of logs, still hadn't returned. At this hour, the truck should have been back already. A breeze drifted in through the wide mill doors, carrying the strong scent of fresh-cut timber. Leaning back, Tuan's mind wandered to Nee, the girl he'd quietly admired for months. Her gentle voice, her small smile. He could picture them clearly, softening even the roughest worries in his heart. He was still lost in thought when the mill door opened. Hung walked in. Hearing the sound of boots on concrete, Tuan immediately stood up and bowed slightly. Good afternoon, Tuan Hung. It's been a while since you visited the mill. Hung gave a faint smile. He looked strong as always, but there was a deeper, quieter heaviness in his expression. He sat beside Tuan. I've been busy lately, he said. Then his voice deepened. As for James, he won't be working with us anymore. Tuan's eyes widened. Why? You two have worked together for years. Hung exhaled softly, gaze drifting toward the stacks of lumber outside. Things between James and Diep didn't go well. He decided to transfer away for a while. Hearing that, Tuan only nodded. He understood, behind such a calm statement must be a quiet heartbreak James didn't wish others to see. After a moment of silence, Tuan asked gently. And you, An? How are things between you and Tieu Ca? Hung lifted his eyes, unable to hide the warmth and concern in them. I'm still helping her and the children. I might visit the mill less from now on, so I'll need you to supervise everything here closely. Tuan nodded firmly. I understand. You can count on me. The two men walked to the recently delivered timber yard. Large logs were stacked neatly, their golden brown color showing they had been properly processed. Hung approached one log, tapping it with his knuckles to test its solidity. This batch is good, he said. Distribute some to the smaller workshops so we don't fall behind schedule. Don't let too much pile up here. Tuan took notes, then asked. Should I double-check the paperwork? Hung shook his head. No need. I've read everything. Just focus on distribution. Sunlight spilled across the lumber yard, heat radiating upward. But neither the warmth nor the dust clouded the seriousness and determination in the eyes of the two men standing there. One carried responsibility. The other carried quiet admiration. And Hung? He was trying to balance both. Because he knew the lives of Tieu Ca and her two children had become something precious. Something he wanted to protect. At all costs. On Tieu Ca's side, the afternoon passed in the familiar rhythm of life in the mountains. The sun was high, but the cool breeze drifting down from the hillside made the air surprisingly pleasant. She tied her hair back, rolled up her sleeves, and got started with her daily work. Walking through the small garden in front of her house, Tieu Ca carried a wooden bucket filled with water from the well. She poured each scoop at the base of her vegetables, clear water seeping into the soil, making the little rows of green seem even more vibrant under the midday sun. The gentle sound of water mixing with rustling leaves, birds chirping on the roof calling to their flock, all blended into the signature melody of a mountain noon. Peaceful, warm, and genuinely simple. When she finished watering, she headed to the chicken coop. The mother hen rushed out to peck at the feed, her chicks trailing behind, chirping cheep cheep. By the pond, the ducks gathered and splashed water, sending ripples spreading across the surface. With that done, Tieu Ca slung the familiar bamboo basket over her shoulder and walked deeper into the back field where her Korean melons grew. The rows stretched far, speckled with ripe fruits among the fresh green leaves. She bent down, checking each melon carefully. Those that were ripe, she clipped from the stem and placed gently into her basket. The soft thunk each melon made against the bamboo side was crisp and satisfying. Like the steady heartbeat of someone working hard for a better life. When the basket was finally full and heavy, she lifted it with practiced ease and headed to the market. There, she arranged the melons neatly on a small cloth and greeted customers with her soft smile. Not long after, women from the village gathered around. Are these sweet, dear? Let me try this one. Give me 2 kilos, child. It was a lucky day. In no time, her basket was empty. She packed up and walked home with the lightness of someone whose effort had paid off. At that same moment, Hung was driving up the winding red dirt road toward her home. The path wrapped around the hillside, lined with lush forest trees on both sides. He slowed the car, a weight pressing heavily on his chest because today, he had to tell her. He was going to Cambodia for a while. Images of the 2 children, and Tieu Ca working tirelessly every day, flashed through his mind. The thought of leaving them alone during this time tightened his chest painfully. When he approached her gate, his phone rang. He pulled over and answered. The voice on the other end belonged to the man who had delivered documents to him a few days earlier. On Hung, just letting you know, the files you asked me to hold on to were signed today. I would bring them over, but I suddenly have urgent business. Hung responded briefly. Just keep them. Bring them when you're free. The man continued. Yes, sir. I'll be traveling for a few days starting tomorrow. If you're heading to Cambodia, then I guess we'll meet after you return. That single sentence made everything clearer. Hung was the one leaving the country. No one else. All right. Call me when I'm back, he said, voice lower than usual. The call ended. Hung set the phone down, fingers tightening around the steering wheel. There were files to handle. A major project that required face-to-face negotiation. He had to go to Cambodia. There was no avoiding it. He looked toward Tieu Ca's small cottage in the distance, thoughts heavy. If she knows I'm leaving, will she be sad? How will the three of them manage without me around? The hillside wind blew through the forest, carrying the scent of damp earth and leaves. Hung inhaled deeply, then opened the car door. Ready to tell Tieu Ca something that hurt him just as much. Hung continued driving along the winding mountain road that led to Tieu Ca's home. On both sides of the path were layers of rolling hills, white clouds drifting lazily across the ridge tops. Wooden houses dotted the slopes, thin trails of cooking smoke rising gently into the sky. A peaceful scene that sharply contrasted with the heaviness in Hung's heart as he thought about having to leave Tieu Ca soon. Meanwhile, on another part of the hillside, Tieu Ca was working tirelessly, chopping bamboo. She carefully chose straight bamboo stalks, used her machete to trim them cleanly, then tied them into bundles and lifted them onto her shoulder. She planned to use the bamboo to build trellises for her tomato plants, now entering their blooming season. It was hard work, but her small shoulders carried the weight with quiet strength, sweat soaking her back, yet her eyes remained full of determination. A sudden danger. Along a deserted path cutting through a sparse forest, Hung suddenly noticed something alarming. Ahead of his car, a young woman was being grabbed and pulled by two men. They were struggling with her handbag, trying to drag her off the roadside. Her terrified cries for help echoed through the wind. Hung's chest tightened instantly. He slammed the brakes, dust rising as his car skidded to a stop. Without hesitation, he threw open the door. His voice rang out, firm and sharp. Let her go. The two men turned around, surprised at first, then their expressions twisted into hostility. The young woman clung to the guardrail, tears streaming down her face. Hung stepped forward, shielding her, pulling her behind him. He whispered urgently. Run. Run east, don't look back. The woman nodded frantically and sprinted downhill. Enraged, one of the men pulled a gun from his waistband. The black barrel glinted dangerously in the midday sun. The air filled with suffocating tension. The other man shouted, Don't stick your nose into our business. Then he turned and began chasing the woman. At that moment, Hung knew. He had only seconds to choose. Run or fight. He chose to fight. The moment the second man turned his back, Hung lunged like an arrow, grabbing his shoulder and slamming him to the ground. They grappled violently on the rocky dirt. The gunman spun around, trying to aim at Hung. Both men locked arms, struggling breathlessly, dust and dirt flying everywhere. Hung clenched his teeth, pushing down with all his strength. And then, bang! A deafening gunshot ripped through the forest. Hung froze. His eyes widened. His breath faltered. A dark red stain spread across the front of his shirt. He wavered and collapsed onto the cold earth. The gunman stared in shock. He hadn't expected things to spiral out of control. His partner ran back, panic-stricken when he saw Hung lying motionless. Is he dead? I don't know. Get him in the car, quick. Hands shaking, they dragged Hung up, carried him toward his own car, threw him into the trunk, and slammed it shut. The metallic thud echoed through the forest, as if announcing something terrible beginning to unfold. Meanwhile, Tieu Ca felt something she couldn't explain. She had just finished tying the bamboo trellises for her tomato rows. The stakes stood straight and firm. A newfound hope for her growing garden. She sighed softly, then began spreading fertilizer over the vegetable beds. The familiar scent of earth and compost drifted around her, steadying her heart. Yet, out of nowhere, uneasiness crept into her chest. She paused, looking toward the distant road Hung usually took. Her heartbeat skipped in an odd, trembling way. A vague premonition. Unfamiliar, yet strong enough to make her chest tighten. Nightfall slowly descended, and a thin mist drifted lazily along the mountainside. In the small kitchen made of packed earth, Tieu Ca lit the wood stove as usual. The fire crackled softly in the quiet evening, sparks glowing beneath the pot. Smoke curled upward, drifting into the night air and blending into the dark sky. A warm, familiar scent of the mountains she had lived with for years while raising her children alone. She stepped back into the house to check on An and baby Long, and was shaking a small wooden rattle for her little brother, her clear laughter echoing through the tiny home. The sight softened something inside Tieu Ca's chest. She bent down and stroked her daughter's hair. "And, watch your brother for me, okay? Mama will finish making dinner." The little girl nodded eagerly. "Yes, Mama. I can watch him really well." Tieu Ca smiled before hurrying back to the kitchen. A night strangely quiet. The moon that night wasn't as bright as usual. Dark clouds covered most of the sky, leaving only faint streaks of pale light across the yard. Firelight flickered across Tieu Ca's face, her eyes slightly reddened, her gaze deep as if hiding something she couldn't name. She stirred the soup and blew on the fire, her hands moving out of habit. But her mind was restless. A strange uneasiness circled inside her. "I wonder what Hung is doing right now." The thought slipped in no matter how hard she tried to focus on cooking. Ever since Hung had been coming to help. Fixing her roof, working in the garden, picking up the children. Bringing clothes and warm jackets for her and the kids. His presence had become part of her life. Today he didn't appear. And there was an unfamiliar hollow space in her heart. She tried not to think too much. She told herself everything was surely fine. A small warmth in the cold. Dinner was finally ready. She carried the tray to the front porch and called the children. The three of them sat together under the dim yellow light. The sound of insects humming across the hills like a quiet lullaby. Just as they began eating, a gray cat they had never seen before jumped onto the porch and meowed softly, asking for food. And gasped in excitement. "Mama! Look! The cat is so pretty." Tieu Ca tore a small piece of food and placed it in front of the cat. It ate quickly, then rubbed its head against her leg as if thanking her. The little moment warmed her heart. At least for now, the three of them were safe and peaceful. But soon after, she looked out toward the dark yard. The silence felt strange tonight. Only the wind rustling through the trees. And a chill that slipped under her skin for no clear reason. Tieu Ca shivered. She didn't say a word. But deep inside, she felt that something was happening somewhere. Something she had no way of knowing, yet her heart seemed to sense. A feeling like the calm tonight was merely the silence before a storm.
Và họ phải cố gắng cũng như phấn đấu rất nhiều để có thể tìm được bình yên trong cuộc sống. Bây giờ thì hiện tại mình vẫn đang edit video và chưa có hoàn thành. Cũng phải mất thêm một khoảng thời gian nữa thì mới có thể hoàn thành video, và mình vẫn luôn cố gắng để có thể đưa video đến với mọi người sớm nhất, và mong rằng mọi người sẽ ủng hộ cho kênh mình nhiều hơn. Và nếu như mọi người yêu quý kênh mình thì hãy like cũng như là để lại bình luận trên video để đóng góp ý kiến và đăng ký kênh của mình, và đừng bỏ lỡ video nào nha. Tạm biệt.